The late Queen's mantra was always, "I need to be seen to be believed." And that's why there has to be a true visibility about an event like the coronation. The King's subjects must see him crowned. And of course, now it's 2022 with all of the technological advances that have happened, that's going to be in Technicolor. What can we expect from King Charles's coronation? Well, I think Buckingham Palace has set out its stall early to say that it's not going to be the bells and whistles event of 1953. Back then, I think the late Queen invited 8,000 people to mark her acceding the throne, and I don't think that's going to be the same this time round. In fact, the guest list is more along the lines of 2,000. What the palace is trying to get across here is that it doesn't want to be seen to be splashing the cash too much when people have had a very difficult winter with sky-high energy bills, rocketing petrol prices and stagnant wages. It's not going to be the right look to look as if they're being overtly extravagant. However, pomp and pageantry is part of the appeal of the royal family, and people do want to turn out in their droves to see these events take place before their very eyes. And because they're royal, they need to be spectacular. Hip, hip! There was something very cinematic about the way the late Queen's coffin was taken from London to Windsor and then finally interred at St George's Chapel. That creates a degree of magic and mystique that the public can tap into. So yes, we want a coronation that's value for money, but I don't think we want a coronation that appears drab or boring or not in line with what we would imagine from such a major event and something that we haven't witnessed in this country for more than 70 years. I think it's probably fair to say that the late Queen was endearingly popular, whereas King Charles perhaps is a more divisive figure. However, we're often looking at him through the lens of him being Prince of Wales, and people's emotions towards a monarch are different to that of an heir to the throne.
Let's hear it for the King!
We saw from the outpouring of support for him after his late mother's death, the idea that spontaneous applause was going to ring out in Buckingham Palace when he arrived for that first walkabout, I think surprised even the King.
God save the King!
People crying out, "God save the King," again.
God save the King!
Those are the sorts of scenes that we associate with times gone by and not modern day Britain. And I think there's a growing admission that actually you can't repeat the things that you had for the late Queen and expect them to still work for modern day royals, because she was a woman of her era and remained sacrosanct on the throne because of her 70 years of stalwart service. And that was very much of its time, and now the approach to the coronation needs to be of today's time. It needs to be of the modern era. And that means transparency, it means value for money, it needs to be really inclusive.
I think we would like to think that, she would have wanted us to move forward with the times and trust her son now. He'll want to do her proud, and hopefully we can do him proud by sticking by him through this tough time.
As Prince of Wales, Charles saying that he didn't want to be a defender of the faith, but defender of faiths. Look, he needs to be the Supreme Governor of the Church of England, so it needs to have a Protestant bent to it. But I think there's a recognition that we're both increasingly secular in Britain, but also there are people from many different faiths living in the UK that need to feel that they're represented by the monarch too. Although the coronation obviously is an event that's going to be repeated in terms of the state ceremony, the two protagonists at the heart of this major royal event are very different. Back in 1953 you had a young and glamorous 26-year-old Queen who seemed to herald the dawn of a new era in post-war Britain after a period of extreme hardship and difficulty. It's the end of a period that saw a platinum jubilee being transferred to somebody who is 73, so an old man in his own right really, somebody working beyond retirement age, who probably won't be on the throne for that long, comparatively. What the palace will be keen to play on is the idea that actually the King does have a great wealth of experience, that it's no bad thing that he is an elder statesman, that it's no bad thing that he learnt from the master, or if not the mistress, in having been the longest serving heir apparent in history, watching his late mother on the throne. I mean, who better to teach him the ropes than Queen Elizabeth II?
God save the King!
Obviously, a coronation is always a visual spectacle, and the intention of televising it in 1953 was to ensure that people around Britain and indeed the Commonwealth and the wider world could witness with their own eyes this magisterial occasion. The world has moved on since then, and you'd have plenty more camera positions in Westminster Abbey and indeed lining the route that the gold state carriage is going to take. And equally, I think, because of social media, we'll probably get a bit more of a backstage view. Since the King took the throne, we've had little Instagram stories here and other little snippets there. We'll remember Inkpot Gate.
Oh God, I hate this bloody thing. What do we do with every stinking thing?
The royal family cannot exist as if it's a secret society. The late Queen's mantra was always, "I need to be seen to be believed." And that's why there has to be a true visibility about an event like the coronation. The King's subjects must see him crowned. And of course, now it's 2022 with all of the technological advances that have happened, that's going to be in Technicolor. There's also a little bit of a contradiction, I think, and we witnessed this during the Accession Council in September, between the pomp and ceremony of the event with people in uniform and it all looking very, very traditional, with the fact that those watching it are standing with their iPhones. And that is a contrast, of course, to the scenes on the streets in 1953, everything being in black and white and all written up for the following day's paper, rather than being live blogged or live streamed or live all the rest of it. Prince Philip back in 1953 pledged to be the Queen's liege man of life and limb. And of course he fulfilled that role with great honour. Equally, it's slightly different for Camilla because as Queen Consort she is also crowned, and that is not something that happened to Prince Philip. It was interesting to see, of course, Queen Elizabeth pitch roll the idea of Camilla even being Queen Consort as opposed to Princess Consort for years and years because of the controversial nature of their relationship after the breakdown of the Prince and Princess of Wales's marriage. It was always thought that Camilla would be Princess Consort. So by the time we get to the next coronation, I think we should be prepared to be calling Camilla the next Queen.